Hello. Since I am returning to a bunch of ships I haven't played in a while, I of course had to return to pretty much one of my favorite cruisers of all time, the Cleveland. This ship will always have a special place in my heart. I've always considered it very strong and extremely fun to play. And a word of note, for those that enjoy watching Kings of the Sea, the tournament final is today at 16 CEST. Probably a couple hours after I post this vid. I'll put the link in the comment if you want to see it. Today is the grand final and it features my clan Omni facing off against OM, a German clan, and the third place decider game will also be played today, so feel free to tune in if you enjoy, well, pretty much the highest tier competitive gameplay that there is in World of Warships at the moment. Anyway, moving on to the Cleveland. This ship has always been one of my favorites. It does have one of the shortest ranges at 14.6. That is a very short range for a cruiser, but it kind of deals with it quite easily because it has such heavily arcing shells. And these heavily arcing shells are especially good in most of the maps because it allows you to use terrain to your advantage. Another thing worthy of note is of course that it has 152mm guns, and like all of these lower caliber guns, IFHE benefits this ship greatly. This ship is pretty much the original fire starter, and I've always enjoyed playing this. Another thing worth noting is that it has amazing anti-air, absolutely amazing anti-air. All you need is the AA range mod, and then if you spec something like AFT on top, you become this massive plane kill zone. There's no carrier in this game though, but I doubt anyone needs to be told about the Cleveland's great anti-air at this point. Pretty much everyone knows by this point that if you're a carrier, you don't want to go anywhere near enemy Clevelands. Now, the shell arcs require a lot of getting used to. That's a reason why many people dislike the ship, but just like the way I love the Des Moines, I really love the Cleveland, because while many people see these slow shells as a huge disadvantage, I enjoy them for the advantage they give, and that's of course because of things like this. This island in front of me, not many ships would be able to shoot over it, but the Cleveland has absolutely no issues of arcing these shells above. So you when you play a lot of Cleveland, you kind of start looking at the maps in a different way. You kind of start analyzing them, like, oh, there's islands here, maybe I could park my ship here. Oh, there's islands there, maybe I can use that as a position. And sometimes even when you're spotted in the ship, people still can't shoot at you because you have such insane arcs. In fact, people who enjoy playing the Atlanta should enjoy playing the Cleveland, because the Cleveland has quite a similar style, except the Cleveland is a bit more versatile because it has better range and it doesn't have quite as ridiculous arcs as the Atlanta has. So you are more versatile, and in that way I consider it even more powerful than the Atlanta, but they share very similar characteristics. The Cleveland does tend to get citadeled easier than the Atlanta does. The Atlanta tends to have a lot of overpins, which kind of bails it out at times. On the Cleveland, you can't really rely on that, and you need to stay angled at times. Did you see that, by the way? 7.3k volley on the Nagata. That is, of course, IFHE, which allows your HE to penetrate surfaces that you otherwise couldn't, and the reason why I use it, because especially when you face higher tier battleships, like a tier 7 battleship in this case, being able to deal that sheer damage is just fantastic. It looks like the Perth and is it the Leander or whatever that's behind me are trying to harass me, but I'm mostly ignoring them because I am heavily angled and I'm turning away from them. And you note, once again, I slip behind the islands and I'm undetected. In fact, the very few times I have been detected in this game has been when I have been intentionally allowing myself to be seen, and this makes this ship so strong. Looking at the minimap, you can see, well, my team isn't really impressing anyone right now. I had a DD who went A, who got killed. No one went to back him up. I have no idea why he went there in general. Going A from this spawn is pretty bad. But our team at C, well, our entire team is kind of on the J and I lines and not really achieving much. At this point, I could use AP on this New Mexico because he's giving so much broadside, but he's already repaired a fire, so I figured whatever, might as well just finish burning him to death with the HE. And with IFHE, of course, you still deal such heavy consistent damage against something like a New Mexico that I don't even bother. You see, no real shattered shells, no nothing. I just deal straight up damage and he burns down. I don't really know if I want to stay and fight in this position. It's a bit awkward. I have ships on both sides, and that makes life pretty awkward because you kind of always want to angle. You never want to be giving free broadsides. In fact, I'm keeping an eye out on my priority target number. That's in fact one of the biggest things you need to keep in mind when you play any cruiser, not just Cleveland. That number next to detected. As long as it says 1, and I know it's the Nuremberg trying to shoot me, I'm pretty okay here because, well, I know who's shooting me, I know I need to angle against him. But when it starts going up to 2 or 3 and you're not really certain who's shooting you, that's when life becomes really risky because, well, of course you don't want to be giving that broadside. Now, looking at their positioning, and I look at the islands around B, I figure if I can get between these 2 islands north of me, I should be able to stealth fire this Perth and this Nuremberg without eating too much damage. So I figure if I eat some damage on the way in, it's worth it because of the position I gain. The Perth does. They both start shooting at me. No, actually, I think it's only the Perth at this point. But I kind of underestimate the Royal Navy AP a bit here, and I think I lose too much HP, especially that volley. I'm pretty sure he got a citadel there. So ultimately, while I liked my plan, and I like the positioning I gain here, since I use defensive AA to shoot down the plane and I'm now undetected, I like the idea of going to this position to be able to stealth fire these 2 cruisers and gain an advantage that way. I think that I traded a bit too much HP getting into this position. You always have to consider any maneuver, any position, any damage you do, you always have to consider what you have to pay for it. If you get there for free, fantastic, but sometimes you have to pay for it. In this case, I paid for it with a lot of HP, and ultimately because the Perth played it smart and instantly disengaged and just fled when he realized the position I had gotten into, it meant that the trade wasn't really that good for me, and in retrospect I probably would not have done this. Because, well, I traded a lot of HP and I got a very little gain. Ultimately, though, this position is quite good now against this Gneisenau, so it kinda evened out because I got into a position that's good for the Cleveland, as I said, between a lot of islands. That's kind of where you want to be in this ship. The Gneisenau is pushing in, and I'm trying to keep the island between me and him for as long as possible because I remain undetected in that way, and as long as I remain undetected, no one is shooting me. Slowly gliding behind the island, making sure the hood isn't sneaking up on me, and using these slow arcs that once again many people consider a weakness. I'm using them to my advantage. Here we have a problem though. The hood is pushing up. I even lost vision of him now, so I have to accelerate. The idea here is I want to get behind this island in front of me and break line of sight to him that way. But of course I also want to deal damage to him because the hood is big, clumsy, bulky. But the guns on it should not be underestimated. He shoots, I turn to dodge. I get some penetration damage on me, but I dodged the majority of it, and I should be able to glide behind this island now, which is of course exactly what I want. Break line of sight with him, which I managed to do. And that was a 4K volley. I'm not certain who shot me from there. But regardless, that means this position is really bad because I can get shot from multiple angles, which is something you never ever want on a Cleveland. I think it was the Emerald who shot me, and calling a target on him, get my team to nail him, would help me a lot if my team would deal with him. And I'm trying to keep this island between me and the hood as long as possible. Once again, using the terrain to my advantage, because I want to gain distance between me and him. Now the hood has turned his guns away from me, shooting at someone else, which would have been a significantly bigger advantage in the past, but when they buffed the turret traverse so much that it doesn't take him very long to turn his guns on me, so the advantage is quite small indeed. And once again you see 2 people targeting me. This makes life pretty risky. I think it's in fact the Nagata that was targeting me as well, so I turn away and angle myself away from the Nagata. Turns out it was not the Nagata, it was one of the other ships. Regardless, the decision to play it safe and angle away from pretty much everyone, because I didn't know which one was actually aiming at me, turned out to be the right choice. I think that was the Fusa who was actually shooting me. So whenever you're uncertain of who's aiming at you, just angle away from everyone and you're playing it safe, especially since I only have 6.6k health. I am being targeted here. This time, I think it might be the Nagata that's targeting me, because I don't think you can shoot anyone else from there. But then again, I'm not really certain, so I turn in this time, but once again remain angled towards everyone. And I want to see if I can maybe finish this hood off. This is of course the power of being low HP in a Cleveland and running Adrenaline Rush. The DPM you can pump out is absolutely ridiculous, like the pure damage I constantly deal. And you know, once again, of course, I am undetected in this ship. The short range on this Cleveland, which once again considered a weakness, is kind of an advantage in situations like this, because I would be spotted by the Nagata if my range was any longer. In fact, I'm reversing at this point to keep the Nagata. You can look on the minimap, you see the edge. He just entered my range now, and that means I'm spotted. So I'm gonna stop shooting now because, well, I have to get undetected at this point. I can't remain detected in a situation like this. And reversing like this and continuing to fire, well, that's a good way to get yourself killed because you're very easy to hit. So angled towards him. I think is it the Hood or the Fuso might be aiming at me as well. I had two people aiming at me. Regardless, I wait until I'm undetected and then I accelerate and turn away. Once again, reversing and shooting only works if your cruiser is tanky enough to withstand that. And the Cleveland is not. It's a very, very thinly armored cruiser, and you want to work more on being undetected, on evading shells, than straight up tanking them with your armor. So I use my concealment to my advantage to turn away, and only now when I'm already sailing away and all my guns are turned do I open up fire for the maximum DPS on this guy. We are still behind on points, but now I'm able to deal damage. Okay, he starts targeting me. You see, one person targeting me. It goes to a 2. I quickly check the minimap. Who's the second person targeting me? It's a Fuso. You see the Fuso gliding into B on the minimap. So I know at this point that I cannot shoot another volley. I need to turn hard because of priority target giving me a warning. And Fuso pops up behind the island. His volley is shot out, but because I reacted as soon as I saw that number switch from a 1 to 2 and I looked at the minimap who could be shooting me, because of that it allowed me to dodge a volley that would otherwise have quite easily destroyed me. So always, when you are in risky situations, well, in any situations really, keep an eye out on that priority target number. That perk is so powerful, and it is always my #1 pick for all cruisers for that reason alone. It gives you so much information. I had some fires. They have been repaired. You can see I just stopped shooting altogether, glided into invisibility, because once again I had battleships on two sides. I had one on my left, one behind me. Very hard to angle against both, so I waited until one of them got killed before I started firing again. And now that Fuso is dead, I continue wrecking. In this case, the Nagata, I'm pretty sure he damage con my fire. It doesn't matter. The Cleveland, of course, is a fantastic fire starter, and even then I have IFHE, so even if I'm not starting fires, the sheer damage I do by the HE shells themselves should melt this ship very quickly. That is, if I can actually land volleys. But Adrenaline Rush, I mean, I have what, 6.4 second reload on these guns, which is terrifying for any battleship facing you. You note that I'm sailing away. Cleveland does best when kiting away from targets. I kite away, I'm heavily angled. If you look at the minimap, you can see just how heavily angled I am away from him. And I keep raining down. Okay, he damage cons now, so now I know he's going to die. All I need to get is at least one fire. I get 2. He's trying to de-shoot the battleship, but honestly a Cleveland, especially one this low and running my build, you can't ignore me. I do more damage than any battleship. The sheer DPM the Cleveland does is insane, which is why it's one of my favorites, and probably why I like this ship just the way I like the Des Moines. They are both insanely damage heavy ships, but both of them are quite squishy, quite vulnerable. They have very distinct weaknesses, but they also have very distinct strengths, so it tends to even out in that way. And at this point it's only the Hood that I was harassing earlier, and he finally gets killed off as well. And I mean, looking at the score, you can see just the sheer amount of damage that I dealt in this game. 163,000 in a tier 6 cruiser against tier 7 battleships. that is a lot of damage. The only thing I really got as a reward was high caliber, but I'm pretty okay with that. Only 2 kills, which is unfortunate, but then again I did focus on burning down the battleships, which is one of the things the IFHE Cleveland excels at especially. Looking at the team score, only 2.1k, not really that much. It looks like Fiji secured a bunch of the kills, but the impact I had on this game cannot be denied because, well, the strongest ships they had, which were pretty much New Mexico, Nagato and Hood, all 3 of them were my priority targets. I did shoot the Fuso a bit, but honestly it wasn't that much. It was more as I was disengaging that I put a fire on him. Looking at the detailed report, you see of course the impact of IFHE. I didn't even get a Witherer this game. In fact, 111,000 pure HE damage, and with the 16 fires I only did 52k. Another 8k would have been Witherer, but not quite enough. Potential damage 1 million, not surprising considering I had to dodge a lot of those battleship shells, but it's really not that high of a number, and the reason for that is of course my positioning, constantly using islands. If I wasn't angled and sailing away from ships, I was hiding behind islands where I was undetected and using the terrible, that's in quotation marks, terrible Cleveland arcs to my advantage instead. So that is how you play the Cleveland, and this versatility, this playstyle has always been the reason why it's been one of my favorites. I can show you my recommended build since I'm sure a lot of people are interested in that. Right, starting off we of course have the modules. Now, not having the range module is awkward, but I feel you can deal with not having it because your arcs are quite awkward at range anyway. But honestly, the stock Cleveland isn't that much fun because, well, you have the 30k HP instead of the 35k, and you don't have the massively buffed AA yet, but and you lack the better turrets that give you a 2-second reload buff. So honestly, it kind of depends on you. Going the range or going the hull first are both acceptable. I would probably personally go hull first, followed by the reload, followed instantly by the range. But honestly, going range first because the default range of 13.3 is so awkward is perfectly acceptable as well. I don't think there's really any bad choices here because ultimately you want to get all the upgrades on the ship. Consumable wise, premium damage control if you can afford it, followed by premium defensive AA and the fighter plane. Of course, yeah, well, this isn't really that necessary, but the additional spotting bonus it gives is quite nice. Upgrade wise, main armaments mod 1, you don't want to be losing your turrets. AA range, because your AA is fantastic and you want to increase the range as much as possible. Damage control system mod 1, because unlike many other cruisers, you don't really lose engine or steering that often. And finally, rudder shift, because you want to get that nice 5.8 second rudder shift time, which is excellent for a cruiser. Moving on, the captain perks. Priority number 1 is of course priority target. This perk is fantastically strong for all cruisers. Your turret traverse is so good. Your turret traverse is actually, well, the stock one is 32.7 seconds, and that's good enough to not need expert marksman. So I just straight up skip it and go straight for adrenaline rush as the first perk, followed by demolition expert for the fire chance, concealment expert for the stealth, IFHE for that massive pure HE damage bonus, and finally AFT for that increased range. The very last perk I put into preventive maintenance to reduce the chance of losing the turrets. Double fighter plane would also be okay, but going for this build has the advantage of making this ship making this captain extremely strong on the Atlanta as well. Let me see if I can find my Atlanta down here in my list, because I'm blind right now. Where the hell did I put it? Here we go, Atlanta. Atlanta, of course, benefits from very much the same consumables. It could use Superintendent for additional radar, but the fire chance is ultimately really better. So I use the very same captain on the Atlanta. So if you happen to have an Atlanta and a Cleveland, then you can switch this captain on both, and it works really, really well. Anyway, that was my Cleveland commentary. A ship that I very much enjoy, and a ship that I consider still to be absolutely one of the strongest tier 6 ships in the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it.